In this video, I am going to cut up a beautiful carbon fiber instrument panel. As is the case with all the carbon parts I've worked on, this thing started off as a plug. I was then able to make a fiberglass mold from that plug. That fiberglass mold was used to do a carbon fiber layup and then an infusion like I've done in all my other videos. That plug was the same plug that I took the cowling mold off, so all those lines should line right up. And then I've got a ton of little goodies that need to get mounted on this thing. So let's have a look at some of that. So that's the instrument panel. That thing turned out beautiful. There are a bunch of defects in it. That one I did on purpose because I know I've got items going there, and then some pinholes with some wax still left over, but a lot of the instruments will occupy those areas. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, from left to right, I've got the power panel that's got to go in first. My dad's been helping me out 3D print stuff, so that's been really cool. This is probably a video in and of itself. The text is all backlit. It's got annunciator light, so little backlight covers for that stuff. So maybe another video, or I'll dive into details at the end. For the power panel, I've got a drill template. Right, so again, I had my dad print that off for me. And then that'll line the air vent at the top off with the power panel itself, and then I got a cut template. So those two go in. Next, I've got the GDU 460 that I got to get mounted in there. So I've got two of those going in, a PFD and an MFD. For a couple years now, I've been playing around with 3D printed stuff. You know, just kind of mock it up. You can get those on the Garmin website. And then, the autopilot's going at the top. This guy, I couldn't afford that one, so I went with the GNX 375, right? I was originally going to do a G5 up here with an AOA, and so I can kind of share some of the concepts. But there's like triple redundancy when I'm going with two GDU 460s. I can always put a second ADAHAR in there and a backup battery, and a G5 just becomes a triple redundancy, so I didn't see much need for that. It evolved from the original concept into kind of what you see here. And then, let's see, in the center, I've got another drill template. So again, my dad's been, I guess, as busy as I've been, trying to get this thing in the air. But he printed this off for me so I can put this in, drill the two holes for the GDU 460, and then line that up and get the other two. And so that way everything is square and straight. So I got to do that first. Second 460 goes over there. On this side, same thing. I got another air vent going in at the top, you know, just like the other side. And then I've been playing around with a couple options here for a glove box door, right? So the little hinge, and that guy will come down with a latch on it. 3D printing's been interesting. You know, this is a smooth finish, and I would have thought I'd prefer the smooth. But the thing is, you can see all the little defects on a smooth plate. And so what my dad's found out is if you use a textured plate, first of all, the text sticks better, and so you get a really good quality text, and the texture hides any defects that would be there. And then, I mean, this thing's pretty cool. That's not how I sign my name, but if I was an artist, you know, that would look pretty nice. So anyway, I think I'm going to go with that one. I love the Bearhawk logo. Thanks, Virgil, for that. That thing's really cool. And yeah, that's kind of like typically what you see, but I think that's the version I'm gonna go with. And then you see the support stuff from the 3D printing, which is pretty neat also. So anyway, that one I have cut templates coming in. They're not here yet, but that'll get a cut template. And there's also a template. It's a hinge template because I have to, let's see, I only got two hands here, but I've got to get tabs welded on to the crossbar on the airframe itself. So this will hinge off the crossbar, but will close on that plate. So that's going to be a little complicated. But anyway, that is what I'm going to do. So let's get this thing mounted and cut up. So the first thing about this is the kit comes with tabs, vertical, kind of like you see over here. And so your avionics got to be a little bit higher, right, to account for a screw that would be going in this way. And so I came in and welded tabs up underneath, and then the instrument panel goes under there, so I can screw it in from the bottom. Let's get it fit up. All right. Already went ahead and got it notched out there. Basically stays in just like that. Time to cut it up. All right, here's where I'm at. I've been going after it with the Dremel. I've started out with this guy, right? And then I use this one right here for the fine tuning after that. This one's been, let's see if I can make that work. Yeah, there you go. So this has been the best tool for cutting carbon. This guy came with my tungsten sharpener. Anyway, another thing that's been super useful is the lighter colored templates are much easier. Let me show you. So I can bolt this in place similarly to how I bolted that. And then to get that circle right spot on, I can actually put a little bit of red Sharpie in there. And then I just keep sanding it down with this guy, right up until when that red comes off, and then I know I've hit my target. Had I known that before, I'd have printed this one off, or had my dad print this one off in white or yellow or something, but that's fine. So I've got to get rid of that step, and then the autopilot should fit. And then I've got the funny geometry for the GNX 375. The Garmin instruction says you're doing a square, but there's little to no flange on that unit. So if you go outside of that envelope, then you'll kind of see through the dash if you're not careful. But anyway, here's where I am. A little bit more to go. It is turning out to be a productive day. I'm working on getting the 460 frames in there. The edge distance on these things makes me super nervous. And then the Kevlar buggers up the holes a bunch, but that's all right. Worked on the chamfers for the rivet heads, the countersink. The cage that normally comes with that guy is a little too big to fit in there, so I had to get a little creative with my de-riveting tool. But rivets are looking pretty good. Got a few more to go. And then next weekend, templates should be in for that, and I can wrap this whole thing up. I've got cut templates. Well, cut and hinge templates. I've got a drill template, a cut template, and I've got my hinge template. One of the beauties of modeling something in CAD is that, this takes a lot of work. It's fairly complicated. I can come right in behind it and create templates from this part relatively easily. All right, I gotta get that sucker in the airplane. Let's see, is there enough light in there? Before I put the hinge template in to weld the tabs to the airframe, I'm going to do some work on the navigator, because that is also going to get tabs welded onto the airframe. What I've done with the navigator is I've cut 2 of these, and these will be screwed into the navigator housing, so the GNX 375 housing, and then they'll be bonded to the front or the back side of the instrument panel. And then I'm also going to put a solid fastener at the bottom towards the frame. So it'll be a dual support thing. I guess you could say I don't trust the adhesive just yet. I'm sure it'll be fine, but I like the idea of having this solid brace. If I don't need it, I can always cut it off. But if I do need it, it's going to be very difficult to put back on. So there is that. The other component of it is I'll be putting in a cross brace kind of like this, right, with a through hole right there, and I'll be welding more tabs in on the back. So it'll be supported solid at the front, and then I'll fix the moment connection there with a triangular brace towards the back. There's the diagonal braces installed. I'm getting pretty close to being finished. I have a fastener down at the bottom, a fastener in the back. I've added the spacers with a slightly longer screw, and then the pieces of angles. There's the TCW battery mount. So I am now ready to get the glove box door installed over there. So let me focus on that. So I've gone ahead and fit up the glove box door, and I found that there's a little bit of variation between my 3D model and the as-built conditions. And what I had to do was essentially see if you can see that, grind a bit of the hinge off, about 1/8 of an inch, and I went ahead and marked that up on my jig, right? So now in the model, I've moved my hole over a little bit and sent that model out to my dad. He went ahead and 3D printed it, and this is what I've got. All right, so this one is slightly different where the hinge is supposed to be. And so I am ready to go ahead and weld in some tabs for the glove box door. Right, well, the instrument panel has come out yet again. It feels like that thing's come in and out of here about 100 times so far. But I think I've got all the tabs welded in for now. I'm going to share some progress with you guys on the LRU mounting locations. I've got a bunch of Garmin stuff going back there, and then also a vertical power VPX Sport that's going to be hiding behind the instrument panel. So let's look at some of the tabs, and then I'll share some of that stuff with you guys. All right, guys, try not to judge me too hard on the quality of the welds. The MIG, I got a lot of background with. The TIG, not so much. So I've got a lot of practice I got to do. I set up a lot of practice material over there. The real thin metal, I struggle with, so I got to practice. But anyway, you saw the glove box mount tabs over here. This is what I've done for the lower tie brace for the navigator. Here's the upper tie brace right over here. And then, let's see, these are the mounts for, there we go. Those are the mounts for underneath the panel that have gone in. And then what I haven't talked about are the Avionics racks that I got. So I've got a port rack and I've got a starboard rack that's going to go in. I've got 3 tabs over there. I've left this one long because I need to get the rack in here fit up before I cut it and drill it. I just don't know exactly where that's going to fall. And then same on that side over there. You can ignore the upper tack on that one. I had a magnet get a little too close to that thing, so I got to fix that. But yeah, let me get the Avionics rack kind of mocked up in here, and I'll show you guys what the deal is with that. All right, this is just about everything that's going behind the instrument panel. This is my mock Avionics rack, It started out as the Avionics rack, but I was doing so poorly with it that I decided to go a totally different direction. But let's have a look at some of these units. All right, the first guy over here, this is the remote mount comm radio. This is a GTR 205. All right, and then I got the housing for it over here. Underneath the housing, I'm going to be mounting the GAD 29C. And then the engine data interface, the GEA24B, those two will go right underneath the port side rack. On the starboard rack, I've got a remote mount audio panel. And then I've got underneath that the vertical power system. And let me go ahead and install this guy and show you kind of how that all fits up. But essentially, this guy just goes up underneath the panel. And rests on those 4 tabs. Now, the more I looked at it, the more I wasn't happy with it. Already right here, this interferes with the back plug of the GNX 375. So let me kind of walk you through how the plan changed. So I started to get really frustrated with it and decided to take a smarter approach. I sat down in front of SolidWorks and spent a few hours modeling up something that was close to what the mock was. I used the sheet metal function of SolidWorks to make that model, and then I printed off a 2-dimensional version of what I had on the computer. That allowed me to print it off, so that's what I got right here, and then I was able to kind of tape that to the mock, put it in place, make sure everything fit upright, and then I thought about, for a second, making this on my own and realized very quickly that, I don't know, getting something that was of good quality would be a struggle. And so in the past, I've used a company called Oshcut, and I made my own log splitter and ordered everything pre-cut through them, and the service was amazing. So I figured, hey, I'll go back on Oshcut and see what they can do for me. So what do I got for those? That's what I got. So that is way better than my plan A. This stuff, I mean, I just got these today, and I was even able to put all the holes for the nut plates in them. And then look at those bends. This guy, I've got the 45-degree bend in there. That'll tie the VPX in. These 2 tabs at the top here, I'll show you this in a second. So the diagonal supports come across, and I'm pretty sure there's error in the model versus the as-built. And so I made these kind of with a lot of extra material on them so that I could line those up and then cut them where I need to cut them. But yeah, so let me mount the enclosure for the comm unit and the audio panel. Let me start there and see how everything fits up. The comm radio housing fits in there real nice. It is a snug press fit. So the bends were done just the way they were supposed to. I got space underneath. Let me see if I can show that. Underneath for nut plates. And then I've got the 3 holes lined up there for those nut plates, and then the 3 vent holes to keep air moving over it. But audio panel fits in great too. And so the next step is to put little chamfers in for flush rivets and get the nut plates on there. That's awesome. That is starting to come together. The port rack, backup battery, starboard rack. It's all looking pretty good. The VPX down at the bottom there. All right, let me get the instrument panel in here. I got a bunch of goodies going into that, and then I get a full view of what the avionics is going to look like. I'm going to stop the video right there. It's been a lot already. I've got the carbon instrument panel in. I'm really happy with it. The avionics all turned out great. A lot of the modeling work I did with the instrument panel, I did that before the kit arrived, so it was kind of cool to do that, the concept, and then actually be able to do, you know, the final result in reality. I'm really happy with all the access I have underneath the panel. It's really easy to get in there. I can access the SD card, the dip switches, and the USB port on the audio panel, along with the network port on the VPX. And then also all of the connectors on most all of the LRUs are easily accessed when I need to do maintenance or modifications in the future. So the power panel, I think I'm going to follow up on a video for that later. There's a lot I did on that. I went through a lot of trial and error to get to where I'm at now. So more to come on that later. And I'll see you guys next time.